Welcome back, fellow pilots. A friend of mine asked me to do a thorough cockpit orientation and how to start a Cessna Skyhawk. So I'm going to go quickly as I can to tell you what everything does in the Skyhawk cockpit here. So starting at the very bottom center, this is your fuel selector valve. If you set it to both, the Cessna Skyhawk can drink from both fuel tanks. One is above your left wing there, the other is up in your right wing there. And so there is a line in the pilot's operating handbook that says it wants you to sometimes when you're fueling on an uneven surface to switch it to one or the other of these, but 99% of the time you're going to keep that fuel selector valve drinking from both tanks on both. Here is your fuel shutoff valve. You won't use this unless you're in an emergency, so make sure that it is always in. Otherwise it's going to shut off the fuel and you won't be able to start your engine, so that's could be a problem. Always check to make sure that's pushed in. This right here is actually an old microphone. Before the days of headsets, you used to have to use a hand to talk into the microphone. You don't have to do that anymore in the plane, usually because you're using a headset. Here is your trim wheel. This trim wheel is basically set right here for takeoff, and I want to show you real quick what this is actually changing. Look on the right elevator as I move that trim tab up and down. This is what your trim tab is doing, and it's stabilizing those pressures to basically make the plane fly the way that you'd like it to do. As you get better with an airplane, you'll find that you use lots and lots of trim. Back to the cockpit now. Coming up here is our mixture, this big red knob. Whenever you start the engine is going to be full rich. That is the most fuel per air ratio in the cylinders. As you climb higher and there's fewer oxygen particles per volume or by volume, you're going to need to take a little bit of fuel out of that engine and basically try to get that optimum fuel mixture, which is 12 parts oxygen, 1 part fuel. And so you might lean as you go higher, and as you come back towards the surface of the Earth, you'll bring it full rich again. Let me show you quickly over to the flaps. This is your flap indicator. I have the engine off, so it's not working. You have 10 degrees, 20 degrees, and then full 30 degrees in this plane. And then you want to avoid slips with the flaps extended, especially at 30 degrees. You could cause a tail stall there. Cabin air. This is if you want to keep your passengers nice and comfy. You'll actually pull this out. That's going to open a little window on the side of the plane. I wonder if it's actually there. I don't see it. It's right here. That would be opening up if I pulled that up in real life. Let's turn on the cabin heat. This is if you have any fogging or something like that, you can turn that on. That's what that does. Come on over here to the alternate static source. This is only an emergency button if something outside covers up the pitot static system, which is hanging out right here. If something like a bug crawls in there, or if something gets into your pitot tube, you can pull this, and that could help to open up those pressures again. Again, this is an emergency procedure. You're usually not going to use that, but you might test that it works right now. Here is your throttle. Forward equals faster, back equals slower. Simple as that. At night, you'll turn these rheostats all the way to the right to turn on your radio lights and your panel lights. Same thing for your glare shield and the pedestal lights outside. You'll turn that all the way on if you want to see it at night. Keep coming over this way. We always start the engine with these avionics masters off. The reason for that is we want to protect the delicate avionics here from a shock that it could get while the engine's turning on, while the alternator's sending its first spark through the system. You want to make sure that you break that circuit, turn those off. Speaking of circuit breaking, these are all circuit breakers here. They are designed to pop out like that if in case there is an overvolt situation, there's too much electricity flowing through it. You can't really interact with these in the sim, and you can't really interact with them in real life, but the idea is that it's going to protect all of these things like the cabin lights, the flaps, the instrument panel, the avionics bus, the turn coordinators. All these electrical things are protected because of these circuit breakers. Let me show you quickly what the pitot heat does. I'm going to turn on my battery, and so now there's battery power flying through the system. You could hear my flaps just this lowering. I'm going to bring it back up. That's all electrically powered. Turning on the battery, if I turn on the pitot heat, that is turning on the heat for this pitot mast right here. If I'm going to fly into potential icing conditions where I'm flying through visible moisture and the temperature is cold enough, I want to warm that up so it doesn't start icing over. If it does, I'll lose some of my instruments. Alright, I'll turn that off right now. Turn on the strobe. You'll be able to see the strobe light right on the end of the wing there. That's flashing. That's your strobe light. Turn the strobe light off. Nav lights are the colored lights, left on the right, green on the right, left is red. Starboard and port, respectively, if you want to think of it like a boat. They're the same as they are on a boat. Okay, let's go over to the taxi lights. Taxi lights on this airplane are on the wing. You can see the taxi light turning on. Looks like they got the fancy LEDs on this plane. Nice. Landing lights, the same idea. It's just the next one over. There's the landing light. Usually you'll use both of those at the same time. Finally, before you turn on the engine, you'll always turn on the beacon. The beacon is right up here on the tail, and that is just to signify that anybody who's standing near the airplane knows that the airplane might be turning on at any time. I always leave the beacon on because as I'm putting the plane away for the night, it's good to leave the beacon on so I can make sure that I didn't leave the battery on by accident. So you can see I turn off the battery, beacon goes off. So that's a good way. So I leave beacon on. Fuel pump we'll do in just a moment because I'm going to try to show you how the book says to start the engine. Start with your flow, make sure it's on both. Make sure the fuel selector is on both. Make sure that the fuel shutoff valve is in. Make sure that you've got, in this case, full rich mixture. But what I'd like to do is move full forward, crack the throttle just a little bit, about 1/8 inch, and I'm going to turn on my boost pump here. So master on. I just turned the alternator and the master battery on at the same time. Boost that fuel pump. You can see I should get a little bit of fuel pressure. Come on, fuel pressure. Where is it? Oh, there it is. Fuel flow. I was looking at the wrong thing. Fuel flow is right there. Okay, that's enough. Turn this off. And now I'm going to bring my mixture full lean. And now I'm basically counting on that engine being primed. I have 2 sets of magnetos here. These are basically spark creators in the engine. I'll switch it to right. So now the right ones are ready to engage, left one are ready to engage. Now both are ready to engage. I got 2 sets of spark plugs that are now ready to engage. I'm ready to engage the starter now. Clear prop, make sure nobody's out there. That guy's standing a little close. I wouldn't start if he was standing right there. He's not even paying attention. And now move to start. And as it starts, oops, wrong way. As it starts, oh, come on, little buddy. As it starts, I'm going to advance this as it starts to catch. There we go, and that is a good starting engine. First thing you check, make sure that oil pressure is alive and rising. You never want to keep an engine running without oil in it. Next video I make, I'm going to try to cover all of these avionics dials and then some of the other things. Oops, I made a huge mistake. I should have set that parking brake first, otherwise I'm going to roll away towards my friend, and that would be a very bad day. Okay, that's it for this video, fellow pilots. See you next time.